Hello, hello, beautiful humans. Welcome to another episode of Teach Gen Tech. Today we have Lucia here, and I'm excited and nervous and anxious and going back to the excited bit about what we're talking about today. So, hi,
Yeah,
Lucia.
let's lean into the excitement. That's what I like to do when I'm feeling anxious. It's like, am I
Yeah.
anxious or am I actually just like really excited to do this? I'm Lucia
Yes.
Cerchie. I am a developer advocate at Confluent. And I guess I could put a link in the live stream if you're wondering what that is. But I'm here to talk to you today about Apache Kafka. We'll get an intro on what the basic structure is, and then we'll run through working with a little app in the cloud. So yeah, I'm excited for that, and I'm also excited to be here with Jenn. We both came into tech from non-tech backgrounds, so we have a lot in common there. I used to be an elementary school teacher, and I love bringing that like teaching spirit to tech because I find it's just really fun to learn something new and then turn around and share it with everybody else I know.
And thank you, Ben, for the sub. I appreciate it. And yay, and hi. And it's not showing in StreamYard, but for some reason, but Ben Meyer said hi. I
Hi,
love Ben. Ben is the
Ben.
best.
Yeah.
And yes, Ben is one of the OGs of the stream. They were one of my very first guests and original people that always pushed me to go forward. So I appreciate it, Ben. And yes, Lucia and I both I like to say I was tech adjacent because I've always been in like tech sales or support, but never like the nitty-gritty of like, yo, go build shit. I wouldn't have no idea. So I knew all the lingo, but I didn't know like how to actually do something.
Gotcha.
So I'm how did you go from being a teacher to tech?
Yeah, so I spent 4 years teaching in elementary school, and I was teaching mostly like 2 to 10-year-olds how to read. So my specialization was like in helping people with learning differences and disabilities get up to speed on reading for their grade level. And I decided to go. I knew I wanted to go into something that had kind of like a maker's aspect to it. And at that point, and I did end up going into something tech adjacent, right? I was in digital marketing for a little bit.
Okay.
Uh, yeah, one of my contracts was with SaaS, and I was talking to their CEO who did a lot of the coding because it was a small company. And I was like, I kind of want to do the coding part.
I
That sounds
like it.
yeah. So then from there, I signed up for like an online boot camp that was in 2020, and got my first job at a startup that helped with like hosted GraphQL APIs and federation and fun stuff. And
Very cool.
yeah, from there, I moved to Confluent where I'm working on spreading the good news of Apache Kafka.
Nice, nice. Okay. Well, I feel like and this is really interesting because I was totally going to put out this tweet yesterday and lo and behold, this happened of I want to see how many previous teachers or professors I can get on this stream.
Woo! There you go.
I think I'm up to four. Four. I think Bakari was, Laura was, you were. I feel like there's another one that I'm missing. But how many can I get on the stream? Oh, Anthony? Was Anthony? I don't remember now. But this
Is
is going
that
to be,
Anthony Campolo?
yeah.
Oh, good question. I know there was music in there. Hi, Anthony, if you're listening.
um, you're, I always call them people's last names. So I just call them their Twitter handle.
Mm,
So it's Anthony AJC Web Dev,
right.
Ramon Ola Soy Milk.
Yeah.
That's their last names. This is their Twitter handle. Now, I would say that like for me, breaking into tech was I worked at Verizon when iPhones and Androids came out and had to build that and reteach it. And then I worked at GoDaddy for quite some time and had to build, like, understand, like, it's crazy. I don't know if they still do it, but it's like a 5-week course where if you don't pass the final test, they'll pay you for the training, but then you don't get hired. And I'm like, oh, dude,
No
I
pressure.
was, yeah, I think I like made it by one question and I guessed on the question. So I'm very, very grateful I got the job. And it's cool because that gave me a bit more experience. You were asking offline, but if I was from like web development, not necessarily because I worked in the email department and then I worked in the hosting department, but not ever knowing how to like build a website or anything. It was more of just like how to troubleshoot what was there. I knew concepts, but not like MySQL was a thing. I knew it was called a database. Did I know how to build, what to do with it, or anything like that? No.
Right. But at the
So,
same time, it sounds like you were learning to adjust to like new concepts very
mhm,
quickly, and how
mhm.
to ramp up on new ideas there.
That is very true. And I think that is something that I feel very, very grateful for. It's also something that I interned in video production, and to this day, me and a camera on manual does not make sense. It just doesn't make sense. I have taken multiple camera courses. I interned as a videographer. Still does not make sense. And I'm just like, you know what? That is Anthony, did you know we were talking about you? Anthony, did you used to be a teacher? We were talking about you. I like to call him my internet big brother. And then I call Ramon my internet best friend. Okay, I'm going to keep talking because I know it can take forever for replies. But it also is something that, oh, they're not showing up in StreamYard. Yes. Uh, Anthony said, yes, Ben. Yes, okay. All of the things. All of the things. That is true. That is true, Anthony. I do talk about you a lot, especially because when we're talking about breaking into tech, Anthony was one of the first people to like introduce me to others, Anthony and Ramon. And yes, that's right. There are at least
Yes.
4 teachers now. Okay. And also, yes, Ben. Yes, just hands down. You are a lot of guidance. I really should. Yes. That is such a good explanation of Ben. You are my internet Jiminy Cricket because you always are kind, yet call me out on when I don't do things accessible. And it's hard to remember it all, and I appreciate it. And oh, you guys know each other. You
Yeah,
guys
no, we
go
were
way back, way back.
coworkers.
You tell. Now I'm curious.
Yeah, no, we worked together at a small startup. So yeah.
Nice, nice.
Mhm.
Well, Anthony, she could actually say your last name. I still say Anthony AJC Web Dev. So
Yeah. No,
she's
Anthony
got
introduced me to live streaming, so I'm very grateful. Thank you.
nice. Look at you go, Anthony. Bravo. And yeah, I I get that. I do get it that it's camp like camping and Olo like water polo. It doesn't register when somebody asks me what your last name is. It starts with a C and then it's like I blink the rest of the letters. So I could put a sticky note on my computer, but that'd be weird. So we're just gonna go with that. Now, this is something that you were talking about offline, Lucia, of like, how did you get into like breaking down really big like topics and concepts?
Right.
Was it specifically going through like a boot camp that did it, or how did you start being able to conceptualize this stuff?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I don't know if it was necessarily going through like a boot camp introduced me to the specific topic of tech, right? And web development with JavaScript and Python. But comes to breaking stuff down. It's hard. Like I remember, I think it was just kind of like a lot of self-reflection on how I learned, which is um maybe if I share that it'll be helpful to other people. But when I was say like first learning about things that even in like college, I would kind of get bogged down in details. And I wouldn't necessarily look for the common threads and things. So I'd end up memorizing a lot of stuff, which like, in tech, nobody wants to memorize stuff. But then I started realizing like in a common thread of things that as I started becoming comfortable with different concepts in different areas, like say, when I was learning to teach students how to read, I learned how to teach them how to read using one method. And then I learned a different like specific method invented by somebody else, at a different time. And then I learned a third method. And by that point, I was like, okay, I'm seeing the common threads here. I'm starting to see what kinds of teaching methods would fit whichever students. And for me, at least, it takes like 3 different implementations of an idea to start really understanding the root concepts and separating that out from the details. So similarly in tech, I was familiar with building JavaScript APIs and building Python APIs. And then one day I was like, I'm going to do a Golang tutorial. And then all of a sudden, all of these things that REST APIs had in common were jumping out at me, like, the paradigms with the CRUD applications. And it's all of these terms that you hear thrown around, but then you really concretize what that means for yourself when you start actually working with the material.
Interesting. And I love that you break that down. It's definitely something that people keep replying. People keep replying. Bakari, were you a teacher? I need to know. I think you said you were. I know he ran boot camps. Does that count? I think that counts.
Count.
And then if that counts, then Ian, we're up to 5. 5 teacher, professor, boot camp runners. I'm seeing how many I can get on the show. Yeah, see, yes. I'm starting to remember these things. To your point about seeing patterns and starting to bring that up, and you talk about reading, which I did not realize this, but I am what we'll change the terminology of it. I am wonderfully dyslexic and also really annoyed all the time when I have to read. So
yeah,
like having to read these comments out loud is always really hard for me. But Ramon, like when we first started streaming, was like, Jen, you got to do it and you'll get better. Thank you. Yeah, good thing I don't have to read right now.
Different fonts help you out?
Not really, because it's more of, I would say for myself, it's a lot of mixing, like the fonts, yeah, they can help, but I still skip words or I still skip letters. So there's plenty of times, especially when I am writing, I will just like skip words altogether. And I'm just like, oh, that would have helped. Well, we'll get there. Maybe. It's concepts and like patterns are one thing that really, really stuck out to me. And I subconsciously was doing, but didn't realize until 2 of the concepts that you mentioned, which are APIs. I used to work for an API company. And to this day, like I get what an API is, yet I really struggle with the fact of like remembering what REST is and all the different like parts of it. Like we've done APIs on Teach Gen Tech. So I believe in 2 weeks, Ian from Postman is going to come on and talk like bare basics of APIs. I'm so excited because I'm like, I need a refresher. It's been a while. And yes, we are talking, is it Kafka or Kafka?
It's Kafka.
Kafka.
Yeah.
What?
Kafka.
Like, is it like a tomato kind of thing or?
Good question. I think so it was named because Kafka producers, which we'll talk about in a second, are great at writing at like high throughput and low latency. It was named after Franz Kafka, the writer. And so since most people whom I've heard refer to him as Kafka instead of Kafka, But yeah,
Interesting.
I personally am not going to like come after you if you call it Kafka.
I think I keep calling it both, and every single time I say it, but
Does somebody
also,
tell you it's the other?
yeah, because like it's also like my last name is Junod, but everybody says Junod because Americans.
Oh,
And so I think that's the other thing that goes through my head. I'm like, Kafka, 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 Kafka. Whatever. Yes, yes, and Laura, I dig it. She is not dyslexic, but she like thinks wicked smart, like fast. It's crazy. And yes, Bakari, I agree with that one. And Kafka is the Midwestern version. Okay, this is me not knowing how to sound out my words, so I'm just gonna put it
I
in.
don't. Maybe it's Kafka. Eh.
All right. So tell us about the scary thing we are learning today.
Yeah.
Scary, exciting. Scary,
Yeah.
exciting.
Very exciting. So Apache Kafka is an event streaming platform. It's open source. It's distributed. There's a lot of different use cases. So you can use it for event-driven applications, and that's basically we're going to get started on doing one of those today. You can also use it for constructing things like data pipelines. There's even, I don't know much about this, but you can use it for like modernizing your mainframe. Basically, anything where you need to move a lot of data very quickly is a good use case for Apache Kafka. So first of all, do you have any? I'm going to stop and see if we have any questions about that, and then we can.
I was just gonna say that I'm guessing you're gonna break down like half the words you just said and ask it through there. So I wasn't gonna go too worried about it because, as many of you know, I got a new job finally. Yay! I work at Ivan, which is data infrastructure, and we also do things with Kafka and Flink and a whole bunch of other things. And one of the things that are said often is like event driven or event stream. And I'm like, what? It does a thing. It does a thing. And that is why I have to teach Gen Tech, is to learn these things.
Yeah.
So
yeah, let's focus in on that term event, right? So
right.
An event is a thing that happens, which is
Yes.
that's not going to be news to many people. But in Kafka, they're represented by a key and a value. And they usually also have a timestamp. That's important to mention. And so one of the things that I was a little bit confused by when I was first learning about events was like, okay, what makes these special, right? Because it's people are telling me events are replacing like objects, and that just makes everything great. And it's an event-driven application now. And it's like, what? Because it, with events, they're often like encoded in JSON or Avro, which is like JSON with special rules, and that kind of looks like an object, right? But what makes it different is how events are handled in event-driven applications. So say you were like, I don't know, coding like a rideshare app, and you had an object that was like represented a request from a user, and you want to represent a new request. So you send a request to the API for that object and it comes back. That's one pattern. But when it comes to events, that event is a new update in an event streaming application. And it's part of like you have a subscriber subscribe to it. So as soon as that event happens, the subscriber reacts to it. So it's a different pattern of designing applications.
We're going to go with yeah.
Anthony is ahead of the game. But yeah, so events are stored. I'm going to use these like beads that my daughter uses to represent each of these beads is like an event. They're stored in something that's called a topic. And the underlying data structure of a topic is a log. And you can't change the events once they're in the log. So I don't know enough about blockchain to answer you on that, Anthony.
I do think it is in the fact that like once it's there, you can't change it whatsoever. Like you
Right.
how like in a website you can go back and change something and then publish it.
Mhm.
In blockchain, you can change something, but it's going to create a new block instead of just replacing what's there. So
Right.
you
So if
can't
you
go back
wanted
and
to
ever
like
change it.
filter out all of the like circles on this topic, you have to like make a new one based on this one. So there is a similarity there. Yep.
Okay.
So you also like can't delete one of these events. That's another. So I was coming from like a GraphQL world where like literally everything is mutable and deletable. So it's like, oh, that's new. The other thing about topics is that they are split up into partitions. So it's like if you have like two logs here, let me see, I'll move them on the screen. And these partitions, each of them can go live on a different server, and that makes Kafka very performant. So I have a coworker this morning, and we're talking about this, like, what is it about partitions that makes them performant? And my coworker's name is Chris Jenkins, came up with a great example for why partitions make apps so performant. And basically said, he's like, think about sending out like emails or SMSs. Now, sometimes the servers for those can be very slow, and you might only be able to send one outbound message per second. So think about what that means for an hour. You're limited to 3,600 messages, given that that's the number of seconds in an hour, right? What if your business is larger than that, right? So in Kafka, if you have like 10 partitions in a topic and you have 10, so I need to back up a little bit. It's like a publish subscribe system. So you have publishers called producers and subscribers, which will register and read those events, like called consumers.
Let's go.
Yeah, let's do it.
Yes, that actually made it really funny because it is blockchain, because Lucia did have blocks on
no,
screen. But yes, it was
there's
also
always
like
something about these analogies that is not perfect. So I'm always trying to find the perfect like partition analogy. But you had a question.
But just on blockchain, you can't delete either. So that one is very similar as well. Okay, so I think this is also when we were talking about earlier, like really difficult topics and concepts. A lot of what is hard to learn are all the new words or words that you know but mean something else in tech, which is not my favorite. It is like my least favorite.
Yeah, naming things is hard, right? And sometimes in tech, like people like will pick a cute name very quickly, and then it doesn't exactly work out for like helping people understand what it is.
And y'all may have seen me look down quite a bit. I am taking very random notes to try to like keep up and understand. And okay, so what is a topic?
Right. So the topic is that log of events.
Okay.
And it could be like emails, right? Or in that rideshare app example, it could be like ride requests.
Okay, that makes sense. So before we go to partitions, what were you saying about subscribers and what?
Right. So let's back up the whole. I got into the example too quickly. Let's back up the whole bus and get into
Going back.
So Kafka is an example of basic example of a pub subsystem. So and that what that is basically it's a system where the publishers of data don't have to be connected to the subscribers, so the things that are reading the data. They're decoupled entirely. There's like a central place where the messages are published and read. In Kafka, that's a topic. Now, those publishers in Kafka are called producers, and those subscribers in Kafka are called consumers. And it's important to remember with consumers, consumer sounds like it's eating it, right? It's not actually consuming it. So once a consumer consumes an event from a topic, that event remains in the topic. And two consumers can read two events from the same topic at the same time due to partitioning thing, which we'll get into in a second. So I'm going to stop here and we'll
really quick. Anthony, I'm actually looking at getting an iPad that I'm hoping I can also screen share if needed, like during this type of example. So that way I can draw things out when people are talking because I don't type fast enough.
Wow, that would be awesome. That would really help me
Yes.
understand too, like the quality of my
Yeah.
explanations. Yeah.
And then just before I go into, Ben said you can also think of topics as like a physical message board that multiple people can stop by and read. Okay, so topics by itself totally makes sense to me. Cool. It's a log of events. Got it. What you just said about the pub sub system and that publishers are producers.
Okay, so if pub sub is confusing, let's drop it right now and just talk about how do events get into topics.
Okay, I like that.
All right, that is a producer's job.
Okay.
Yeah, so a producer writes events to topics, and I'll wait for you to finish your note and then we can
Thanks.
continue.
Okay. Got it.
The other things that it can do is like it can batch data and send a bunch at the same time.
Okay.
And then the next part is this is a little bit. So every event had a key and a value, like I mentioned before, right? And every topic is split into these partitions that can live on different servers. Okay. Producers assign events to different partitions based on a hash of that event's key.
Assigns events to producers.
To partitions.
To partitions. Thank you. Well, this actually brings to my next question. So assigns events to partitions based on hash key?
On a hash of the keys. So basically what that means is it'll perform like a hash function on the key, and events with the same key will end up in the same partition.
Okay. This so like a value makes sense to me. An API key makes sense, but more of just because you have to pull it and put it somewhere.
Right. This key has nothing to do with authentication.
Right.
It's just like key value pairs.
Where do you get a key? Can I put like Jenn's the key?
So yeah, I mean you could.
Or the 42 is the, the answer to life. Like, how do you make a key?
Question, and it's the right question to ask when you're thinking about Kafka applications, right? When you're thinking about writing your events, you're thinking about, since they're partitioned by key, you want to think about what you put in the key so that you have your events basically like organized within your topic.
What goes into it? Like, how do you create a key? Like, does a key have? I feel like I'm going to use the Googles. The Googles and I are friends.
Yeah, I could also start showing you what they look like.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. Our keys actually in this example are going to be null, so they're not going to be, they're going to be a side. There's like a round robin method used instead when your keys are null. So we're not, but they can be null or like a string. So we were on keys, partitions.
Okay, but they can be strings?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, it all goes down to bytes in the end, but like kind of everything does in text. So I don't like.
Right, but it doesn't need to be like a specific integer or something like that.
Yeah, no, it would be like a byte type converted into bytes. And it could probably be an integer too. I would have to check. Pretty sure I used one in one of my last applications, but.
Dope.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So it's the thing.
Now reading these is another thing. And we're going to need to get to consumers. So consumers are the things that read the events from the topics.
Okay.
All right, and they don't have to do any compression or like key assignment or anything like that. more than one consumer can read from more than one topic. They'll both read from different partitions.
Okay.
So that allows you to do is scale things up, right? So do we have more questions? Are we good to go back to the email example?
I think I'm good. If anybody else in the chat has questions, let us know. We can go back. But I think we're good.
Yeah. So if you're like limited to that number of messages an hour because you've got one server, you can use Kafka, which to send and read these messages, which is a good mechanism for scaling because each of those partitions lives on a different server, and you could create like 10 partitions in a topic and get up to like 36,000 messages an hour, which is a lot better than 3,600. Does that make sense?
It makes me think that Twilio uses Kafka.
I don't know the answer to that question. Wouldn't surprise me if they did, but
anybody know? Like in our chat. I'm curious now, but please continue.
Yeah. So with that in mind, I'm trying to think over what I've gone over. I think we've gone over like the key concepts that I wanted to treat before I share my screen and get into what we're going to do. But with that in mind, we're going to start out with a fun type of event. I'm going to get a link to it into the chat here. Hold on.
Cool.
Grab it. So we're going to be working with, I can only put it in the private chat, apparently.
That's fine. I'll copy and paste it over.
Yeah. We're going to work with data from automatic identification systems for boats. So basically, it's kind of like FAA traffic for planes, but for boats. All boats that are over like a certain weight and are international have to send out signals that define like their location and their speed and like other information. And we're going to connect to a web port that gives us that data live. And then we're going to pipe that into a Kafka topic. So that's like 2 steps. So let's just focus on those for now. Yeah, so let's look at what that data looks like. I will pull up my screen, and I'm going to get this terminal nice and big here so that we don't.
Sweet. I will add yours to the stream. Yay!
Yay!
Can you just make the text a bit bigger, please?
Yes. How is that?
Yay, much better. Thank you.
I'm going to grab, so this, I have a command here, and this is doing a few different things. So we're going to go through it by pipe and just walk through what it does before we see the output. So this is the NC stands for Netcat, and that allows you to like connect to random ports on the internet. This one's maintained by the Norwegian, I don't think it's like Port Authority, but it's like the Norwegian government. And so we're connecting into that port, and they send out the data that they get in there. This is GPSD code, which basically takes the format of that data and makes it more readable. However, that's not necessarily in the nicest like JSON ever. So I'm using this utility called JQ in order to format the JSON in like a readable way. So when I hit enter, this command will, all this data will be piped through like all of that, and we'll begin to see the different ports coming in a second. Sometimes these things take, there we go. So I'll hit pause just so we can like scroll through some of this. But yeah, so this data is, it's AS data, right? And then not all of the ships give out the same pieces of data, but what we are going to be looking for eventually will be this, which is like a ship's ID, the MMSI. Don't know what that stands for, but it's the ID. And then the Latin long. And then we can even get like the speed. I think this is in knots. I hope it's accurate. That's kind of a funny field to me. And the other things like that, like maybe this is a radio address and you could like radio them. That would be cool. But that's the data that we are going to work on piping into Kafka.
Okay, so to repeat that back to you, you sent us a link to a wiki page that is where you got the connection to the boat data.
So yeah, I can give you the link to the Norwegian government's page too for that when I'm finished sharing my screen.
Yeah, I'm guessing it's probably one of the things here that we could always look into. And then we go to the Norwegian humans port and use their IP address to go into it to get the GPS, but it's decoded but not very easy to read. So we use the JQ unbuffed to make it readable.
Right. And unbuffered does something. I think it just makes sure that all the data is sent before you hit exit out. That's what that flag does. I can relook that up, but I remember making sure that I knew what that meant, and that's what that does. So.
And then are we using, I get that the MMSI is the identifier, but are we using that as the key?
No, we will just actually be piping it into a topic with a null key in this demo, but that might be used as a key, right? If we wanted one partition per boat.
Okay.
Yeah, good thinking.
Cool. So far I'm picking up what you're putting down.
Awesome. So the next thing that we're going to do is, so this command is a bit long, so I'm going to format it. We're going to use a utility called kcat, and what that stands for is Kafka cat. I have a link again that I'll just do a big link dump at the end of this.
Cool. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. And I have put in all of this. I've gone into like a kcat configuration file and I've put in a bunch of connection details, and that is connecting up to Confluent Cloud. But let me back up a second. Hold on. So kcat is like, it used to be called Kafka cat. And you know how like when you hit cat and then a file and then you can see what's in the file on the terminal. Kcat lets you see like what's inside your Kafka topics. And it also allows you to produce to them by passing this cool little flag. But before we even do that, we have to back up a step. I realized I was getting ahead of myself. And we have to jump into Confluent Cloud and create a topic to pipe this to, right? Because if there's no topic, then it's going to send. Actually, it'll be interesting to see what kind of error that sent. Let me see. Might just not do anything for me. But we're definitely going to go into Confluent Cloud and create that topic so that it has something to pipe to. So I'm going to log in here. Okay, so this is like my Confluent Cloud dashboard, and I'll be managing basically the servers that I've got running through Confluent Cloud here. I've got different environments set up. These are like side projects.
Can you make it a smidge bigger, please?
Yes, of course. Is that better?
Cool. So much better. Thank you.
Yeah, and I've created an environment for this demo here. We've got one cluster of servers running already. So I'm going to click on that. Okay, I'm going to make a topic. I'm going to accept the default configuration here, but I'm going to change my topic name to one that'll fit. So AIS. I'm going to skip defining a data contract for now. So this is my topic in Confluent Cloud. I have a configuration panel with some default details, which we're going to leave for now. And I could make a schema, which we could get into later, maybe at the end of the live stream when we're talking about different applications for this, but we don't need a schema for right now. And then this panel is the messages panel, where we see messages coming in once we start piping in that data, but there won't be any data coming in now because we're not producing any data there. So let's return. Yeah, let's return to the terminal and run that command. Okay, so another important thing is that I have in the KCAT configuration file, I've put the authentication or the authentication details. So there's like a key in there that enables me to connect to that cloud. So when I run this, well, it might take a couple seconds, but we'll get new messages in here.
And where do you edit your KCAT?
That is a great question. So let me pull up. Oh, there's our data coming in. Let me pull up. There's a great blog post. So I rely a lot on the blog posts of, of my coworkers. So for example, this AAS demo is based on a blog post by my coworker or former coworker, Robin Moffat, who like made a whole like app to find out like which boats were like clustered together closely using Kafka. So I'll put that in the chat as well.
Cool.
So we'll see Infinite Me for a second, but then there's also a blog that my current coworker Chris Jenkins made about how to configure your KCAT utility. So those two are in the links.
Sweet. Oh, it made it as I'll post them twice because sometimes StreamYard likes to try to put them all together as one. It's not what I want.
Okay, so we've got this message coming in. That's got the value, and that's just the JSON data that we piped in. The header is empty for now. We could put like metadata in there if we wanted. And as you can see, the key for this is null. So it's all going to be assigned to the different partitions round robin. Sorry, I'm going to drink some water.
Do it.
All right, so this data is coming in basically non-filtered, right? We just got all of the data that we could. So the next step is going to be using KSQL DB to filter the data. And what KSQL, okay, I'll back up a second too, because there's like an underlying, what underlies KSQL DB is this library called Kafka Streams. And you can implement your own solution yourself with like Java and filter streams of data that way. Or you can use KSQL DB, which uses SQL-like syntax, and then you can start filtering, creating streams and filtering your data using SQL-like syntax here. So that's what we're going to do today. And if at any point you have questions, you can just go ahead and interrupt me because since I can't see your face, I can't take cues. So
I think it's definitely something where like what you're saying it's starting to conceptually make sense, but there are still like a ton of words that don't, but I'm like writing them down as we go. So that way I don't have to ask you about every single one of them because that would take us forever. So
yeah,
you're giving me a lot to think on.
Yeah, any questions after like we're finished creating the cluster and filtering stuff? Basically what we're going to do is we're going to use SQL syntax to create new streams and filter them. So I'm going to create this cluster. We'll continue. Global access should be fine. I'm also just going to accept the cluster name. It takes a couple of seconds to launch the cluster. Oh no, something went wrong. What was it? It could be that I'm out of API keys. So because that's an API key issue, I'm going to stop sharing my screen for a moment and double check that.
Sweet. It definitely, you've given me a lot to look at, but like, I know for myself, it's like what you're saying makes sense. Like I know SQL is a thing. Like I am gonna start doing my own like understanding and walkthroughs of like Postgres and MySQL and those type of things. But at the same time, when you're like SQL like syntax, I'm like, I don't know what that is yet, but I'll get there. Another one is like creating a cluster. And I think this is something that we added to like my to-do list of figuring out streaming of like does that have something to do, clouds having something to do with like, or cluster have, does cluster have something to do with cloud? Wow, words, they help. And looking more into that, because I think that's a little confusing, but also something that would make more sense when I'm actually going through it and can like Google these certain things that I don't understand.
Yeah. So here, that was definitely something that I was like everybody's using cluster, like it's, an assumed word. It's a cluster of servers, so it's like a group of servers, and
Okay.
provisioning them using the cloud. So I don't know. Hopefully that helps.
That's what I was guessing,
Yeah,
but
it just sounds yummy, like cookies or something. It's just servers. um,
that's funny. That's funny. I feel like that would be really cool. I don't know if Laura is still watching, but we talked about it yesterday that we need to do like a makeup markdown stream. Just like, hey, for those who enjoy makeup, join us and we'll create some markdown. I don't know. Or
yeah.
maybe we can talk about markdown while we're doing our makeup.
Ooh, that sounds like a TikTok.
That would be kind of complicated though, because I don't know how you would talk about markdown without showing what you're doing. So I don't think you could do makeup at the same time. I
Yeah,
don't
I guess
know.
it depends. You could probably like have one person doing their makeup and the other person doing markdown and switch.
That is true. Laura, yay. And did you hear what Lucia just said? Like, we could take turns doing makeup and one of us explaining markdown. I'm so down. I'm so down.
All right, so got through the cluster issue. It's still busy provisioning, which means just getting set up so we can connect to it.
Sweet.
So we'll wait for that. Let me see if I have any fun links to share while we're waiting for that to come.
Sweet. Laura just said, Devrel, get ready with me. I like it.
Awesome. I have a blog post here. We're talking about learning things earlier. That's kind of like my little take on how to like learn new things.
I like it.
Yeah. Then we've got, let's see. Oh, here's a couple of really fun Kafka resources. It'll be interesting to see how these, I had them in bullet points, so they might translate funny. They did, hold on. But one of them is called Gently Down the Stream, and it's like, it's basically like an online comic book that uses little otters to describe Kafka, and I love it so much.
Yes.
Yes, so that's really great. And then Confluent Developer has this like 101 course on Apache Kafka in case the stream piqued your curiosity.
Sweet.
Yeah, those are two like good introductory resources. Our cluster is up, and I was sharing my screen with Infinite Share while I was sharing this link, so I apologize. I just realized.
All right, so I will add you back to the stream. All right, we can see Confluent.
Okay, awesome. And the editor. So this editor is going to allow us to create streams using SQL syntax. I'm going to set this to earliest here so that it catches all the data from the beginning. I could go into auto offset reset, but basically what it is, it's going to take each message from the first, the last message that the broker has a marker on and produce it just so that we catch the most messages possible. And then I just copy and pasted a lot in here. So let's go back to the beginning. So we're going to create a stream. So I just wrote create stream. We're going to call it AIS. Because basically it's just going to reflect the data that we already had, and then we'll create another stream that will filter it. So these will all create columns that correspond to the different pieces of JSON fields that we saw earlier. Then there's this with clause. So the value format is going to be in JSON, which is what we piped in. It could also be in something called Avro, which is what we recommend because it has extra rules on top so that things don't get messed up, is basically that deal. But for right now, value format is JSON. And the source is the Kafka topic that we created, the AIS data topic. So when I run this query, we get a response with a success status. That's what I'm looking for. And if we go over to the streams tab, we'll see it come up in a minute here because we just created it. There it is.
Mm-hmm.
Side note, this KSQL processing log is cool. You can query it and get like errors if your streams aren't working the way you thought they were. Good thing we're not seeing any messages right now. That makes me happy.
Yay.
But oops. Hold on. There we go. My mouse is like, it's getting a little like sweaty. So, all right. So this is our AAS stream, and we would like to query it and see if it works. So this looks like SQL here, like select star, which means all of those columns from the AAS stream. Emit changes means it's going to be picking up all of the, stop and try again. Oh, there we go. It's going to be picking up all of the changes in that topic as they're piped in. So we have all of the data there. So it's a little bit of like a mindset change I've found from making queries on database tables, which are static, right? Whereas topics are constantly flowing with data. So that's a little bit of a difference, but we're seeing our data come in here, which is what we wanted. Now, I'm going to stop in case we have questions, and then we can continue to the next query.
I feel like, can you go up a little bit on your screen?
Yeah.
Down a smidge just to go over. So we have the editor, which is where we told it what JSON, like the source is JSON and what we wanted to pull. Flow is, do we need to know what flow is? Or
it's kind of like a visualization of the streams.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, so there's no connection between these two in particular right now, but I think when I create a filtered one, we'll see like an arrow and a new one. So let's experiment in a second with that. Yeah, and then under persistent queries, we may see that this is like if you have a query that is continuously transforming data, it would show up there. I'm going to go back. I'm going to run this query one more time because I want to see some messages coming in. Now, the new query that I'm going to run is going to look something like, I'm going to paste it into the editor here. It's going to look something like that. And we want to pick an ID that shows up. And so we want to see one that comes up like more than once. Just to make sure that we can have a flow, right? Because if it's a boat that's like stopped and only sent out one piece of data, we don't want to try to make a stream based on that. So 259, I'm just going to scroll through these really quick and then like pick one. 258. It's the same 258. Okay, this is going to take like a little. Actually, it might make more sense to pull one from the terminal, but we'll see. So yeah, okay, that one showed up more than once. We'll use that. All right, so what this does is it uses the AS stream that we just created as a base. And we're going to be selecting the ID, the latitude and longitude from that stream, where the MMSI equals this particular ID, so for a specific boat. So we're going to run that query now. Okay, and we've created it. Now we can query it. Actually, I'm curious about the flow. There we go. Yeah, so you can see now that we've created that stream based on the original stream that we created here. So the filtered stream for one boat, and we can see the data coming in. Lat1 is no, it must be like static. So sometimes the boats don't move, and so the lat1's not coming in, but yeah, you can see the data coming in for that particular boat based on this stream. I mean, you could also query it to see that information too.
Yeah.
And
And
that's
then,
actually a persistent query because it's continuously filtering the original stream.
and then remind me, what is the difference between a stream and an event? So an event just is like something that happens, with, but what is a stream? And a stream is different than a cluster, but a stream happens on a cluster?
Okay, yeah. So let's take that one at a time. Difference between a stream and an event. This whole collection here is a stream, and then these particular messages coming in are the events.
Okay, so multiple events make a stream.
Right. And then a stream is basically it's like a flowing table, as it were. We also have tables which are like snapshots that you can take. But it's like a flowing table that you can that's informed by a topic, and you can perform like different transformations or aggregations on these different streams.
Okay. And then what about like this the stream versus like just to like get to where we are right now is, so we had the boat data, which is just ongoing data that they're like, yo, this is where we put all our boat information. And then we put it into, by running it with the netcap and GPS decode and JQ unbuffed, it created it and put it into a JSON file.
So it actually piped it into it put it into JSON format, and then
Okay.
that was piped into Kafka from the terminal, so into a topic from the terminal.
And you had to create the cluster and create the topic in Confluent, but once you did that, then you could tell in terminal, tell it to run kcat to then put it into the cluster, and then we told it to run KSQL DB to be able to decode it. And
Yeah, good question. So it's already like decoded in the interface for you. So within the context of Kafka, decoding and encoding means something that relates to the serialization of bytes. So let's what it does is you can filter it based on the streams.
okay. Which created filters, okay. And then which that then created, like, we had AIS, which is the original topic that we created, and then the KSQL processing log is the stream we created, and then we created the filter which connected the two.
Yeah, so this is actually in a separate topic that Confluent is running in the background to give you like error messages, this KSQL processing log. This is run based on our topic, the AIS stream. And then this one is a filter on that AIS stream, this AIS filtered topic. Does that help?
Kinda. I'm going with like what you're saying makes enough sense, but there's so many things that are also still very confusing. At one point you used the word broker.
Oh, sorry. That is a server with like that has like metadata information on it. It's a server.
I think that's going to be the funniest thing is like, so far we have a producer, we have consumers, we have a broker. It sounds like a joke about people going into a bar.
Yeah. So a broker and some streams, and yeah. No, that's fair. Yeah.
I think it's definitely a lot that I need to look into because like what you're saying and talking about does make enough sense. I don't think that I guess could say like I've leveled up enough to get to the point where I'm fully understanding where we're at. I feel like I am soon, especially with all of the streams I'll be having because we're like starting as small as like what is data. So you gave us a really big topic, and this has happened a lot. Like uh, I had Trevor on the show, and he talked about um, uh, Kubernetes and Docker and um, PowerShell. No
Woo!
idea what he was saying. Like it made sense, but it didn't make sense. I've also had somebody come on about Golang. So it's definitely
Yeah.
something that
And
I'm
like
like,
you will learn so much too just by osmosis, by listening to these conversations and being part of them.
yeah,
Yeah, it's definitely I've really felt like that when I was first learning Kafka, and then also when I was first learning how to code, right? It's like there's a lot of new vocabulary, and that can lead to like some overwhelm too, right? So I think
100%.
I think it's important to like have patience with yourself and realize like, hey, if I didn't know something today, it just means I learned something, right? Right. And
Yes.
yeah, and I'll be able to apply it later in the future. And then like in a few months, like I'm sure you've had this experience with learning new things, you'll be all of a sudden you'll be able to like pull a definition for something out, or you'll be able to help someone else learn a new concept by using some
Hmm.
kind of analogy, and you realized, oh, I've internalized this new knowledge, and you'll feel really good about it.
Yeah, I feel like that is a big part of what I love about Teach Gen Tech and like the show is like learning it. They always build on top of each other, even if they're not always in the a linear order. They like we went really high level for this one, and then I'm going to go back to the basics. This is also something that I love about with like my stream with Laura. We do Python every other Friday, and then I also am learning TypeScript with Josh the opposite Fridays. And it's like those are teaching me the fundamentals that I kind of like knew existed, but I didn't really have the words to it, like we were talking about earlier. What would you say was somebody's or like your favorite resource where when you were learning about all of this?
I just put down a couple of them already.
Yeah, and I shared
There's
those.
there's a couple. Let's see if I have any more in my.
But like overall, because we were
Yeah,
talking about like learning big topics, and I really like the one that you shared about framework for knowing what you don't know.
yeah.
That one I'm
So
looking forward to.
so for that, one of the things that got me started, like, it's a tutorial, but it's like a good starter that I return to a lot. I'll see if I can find it here on Confluent Developer, and I like this because it's available in a lot of different languages. But
Nice.
yeah, hold on, I just need to find language. Oh, it's under language guides. That's right. So this resource here, I built this out in Node and Python, and it helped me understand a little bit about because what KCAT was doing for us is you
Hmm.
can do that like in code in Python or in
Oh,
Node.
okay.
Yeah, and that really helped me kind of see what was common to the different clients, what things I would always need to do when it came to like running Apache Kafka in an application. So that was really really helpful. I should do it in Go next. That's what I should do. That'd be fun.
There you go. Giving you some
Yeah,
ideas.
yeah. So that's definitely a resource that I enjoyed. One that's like helping me with like osmosis wise and kind of understanding the different use cases for Apache Kafka across the entire huge tech industry is um, my coworker Chris Jenkins has a podcast. Here's the link on
Yes.
the website, but it's on YouTube as well. It's called Streaming Audio. And guess what? The latest one is how to use Python with Apache Kafka, so you might like that one. But that's been really, really fun because like the topics are like you said, they're not like linear, but they're all very deep, super interesting conversations. I like turn it on, fold my laundry, and it's like a great time. So that's definitely one of my favorites as well. I will give you this
I know
demo.
you shared a specific one, but now I'm joining. I was like, oh yeah, Ben was on the show with Chris, and Ben's one of my coworkers, so I went and grabbed that one
Awesome.
because that one is a really good one. And yes, osmosis is the thing to do, is what I'm realizing. And I know that there's a lot of people that we can learn from, and the Twitters is always very, very good and very fun. So definitely suggest go follow Lucia. Do you use Twitter that much? Are you more of a Mastodon or LinkedIn? Where do you
I'm on
peruse?
all of those right today. I'm on Data Folks on Mastodon, so I'll put that into the chat. And then
Cool.
my Twitter my Twitter username is, it annoys me, but it's like slightly different.
Oh no.
Yeah, it's slightly different than my other handles because I think I like, before I was in tech, I got onto Twitter and then I like locked myself out. So I gave myself this handle thinking it wouldn't matter very much. And now it's like the bane of my existence. But
I get that. I get that.
yeah. And then I'm on GitHub as well. So I'll I like to push up different like tutorials on there. So
Sweet. And all of these links will be in YouTube as well. So don't worry if you're not seeing them now. They will be linked. And yeah, I mean, I personally feel like I'm at the point where like I get it, but I don't get it. And if you try to tell me more, I'm gonna be like, I don't know.
you're learned out.
Well, I feel like it's a lot of also like letting it simmer in the background for a while and then learning more, which is something that I've learned is how to say it. Laura and I talk about this a lot. Where it's like even if you're not going to understand it, still trying to like consume some of it to like a certain point. So, and that is something that I've been working on learning. And thank you. Is it Kenry Henry Ortega? I want to say that's how you say your name, but I don't know. I'm horrible at names, so that is definitely. Uh, Feel free to hit follow on Twitch or on YouTube, wherever you're watching this, because there is going to be so much more data infrastructure coming out in the future. I am excited.
I'm
And
excited to follow you, and I really appreciated your feedback and questions. It's helped me like refine my approach too in teaching, so that's awesome.
yay.
And yeah, I feel like you're gonna do great.
Thank you. Thank you. You as well. And Anthony said that you got to build something, then click, or you got to build something, then stuff will click more. Yes. Yes, I do. And I can't build a Kafka Hello World app. I can build a Kafka Hello Beautiful Human app, but not Hello World. I have yet to build a Hello World app. Everything I've renamed. Well, thank you again, everyone. And let's go find someone to raid to. I love raiding. It's always so Ian. We got Ian and James. I feel like we've been talking about Ian. We've also James always raids me, so we're gonna go to James. Thank you everybody for joining today, and see you again on Thursday. Yay! Maybe it'll raid. I don't know. It's counting down. Why are raids so complicated? They take forever. Okay, bye. And